Hey, fellow witches and wizards. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the wizarding world's most fascinating paradoxes. We're talking about Arthur Weasley, a pureblood wizard from one of the sacred 28 families who absolutely adores everything Muggle. So grab your wands, settle in, and let's explore what makes this ministry employer tick and why his obsession cost him dearly in the pureblood world. Let's start with the basics. Arthur Weasley works at the Ministry of Magic in the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office. Now, for most wizards, this would be a boring dead-end job. But for Arthur, it's a dream come true. This is a man who gets genuinely excited about rubber ducks, electrical plugs, and the function of a postal system. But here's the kicker. Arthur comes from a pureblood family. The Weasleys are listed in the Sacred 28, that directory of British families who are considered truly pureblood. These are families that pride themselves on having no Muggle ancestry whatsoever. And yet, Arthur Weasley became the ultimate Muggle enthusiast. To understand Arthur, we need to understand what he walked away from. The pureblood society in Britain during the 20th century was all about tradition, status, and blood supremacy. Families like the Malfoys, the Blacks, and the Lestranges maintained their positions through wealth, political connections, and strict adherence to keeping magic in the family. These families intermarried to keep their bloodlines pure. They looked down on Muggleborns, calling them mudbloods. They viewed Muggles as inferior beings, barely worth acknowledging, and they expected other pureblood families to fall in line with these beliefs. But Arthur Weasley, he went in the complete opposite direction. He married Molly Pruitt, who shared his progressive views. They had 7 children and raised them to respect Muggles and Muggleborns. Arthur's fascination wasn't just a hobby, it was a statement. Let's talk about Arthur's job. The Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office is responsible for dealing with magical objects that have been enchanted and released into the Muggle world. We're talking about things like invisibility keyrings, biting teacups, and shrinking door keys. Now, Arthur heads this department, and it tells us something important. The position is severely underfunded and understaffed. At one point, Arthur mentions he's the only person in the entire office. The ministry clearly doesn't consider this work important, but for Arthur, every case is an opportunity to learn more about how Muggles live. In Chamber of Secrets, we learn that Arthur actually wrote the Muggle Protection Act. This law makes it illegal to bewitch or enchant Muggle objects with the intent to harm Muggles or fascinate them into using dangerous items. Arthur's work isn't just about curiosity, it's about protecting the people he admires so much. But here's where things get real. Arthur's choices came with serious consequences. The Weasleys became known as blood traitors in pureblood circles. Lucius Malfoy, who we meet in Chamber of Secrets, openly mocks Arthur's career choice and his fascination with Muggles. Remember that confrontation in the bookshop? Lucius calls Arthur's interest in Muggles a disgrace to wizard kind. He looks down on the Weasley family's financial situation, which is partly a result of Arthur's career choice. The Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office doesn't pay well. Arthur could have pursued a more prestigious, higher-paying position, but he chose passion over gold. The burrow is patched together with magic. The family wears hand-me-down robes. Ron arrives at Hogwarts with a broken wand held together with spellotape. The Weasley children face mockery from wealthier students like Draco Malfoy. All of this stems partly from Arthur's decision to follow his heart rather than pureblood expectations. So, what drives Arthur's fascination? The books give us some beautiful examples. When Harry first visits the burrow in Chamber of Secrets, Arthur bombards him with questions about Muggle life. He wants to know how electrical plugs work, what the function of a rubber duck is, and how Muggles manage without magic. And these aren't condescending questions. Arthur asks with genuine wonder and respect. He's not studying Muggles like specimens, he's fascinated by their ingenuity. Think about it, Muggles accomplish incredible things without any magical ability whatsoever. They've created flying machines, communication devices that work across continents, and entertainment systems that capture moving images. In Goblet of Fire, Arthur is absolutely delighted to be camping at the Quidditch World Cup because he gets to try starting a fire the Muggle way with matches. For most wizards, this would be absurdly tedious when a simple incendio charm would work. But Arthur sees it as a puzzle to solve, a skill to master. We can't talk about Arthur's Muggle obsession without mentioning his greatest triumph and failure, the Ford Anglia. In Chamber of Secrets, we learn that Arthur enchanted a Muggle car to fly. He added an invisibility booster and expanded the interior with an undetectable extension charm. Now, technically, this violated his own Muggle Protection Act. The car was never supposed to be used, just studied. But when Ron and the twins flew it to rescue Harry from the Dursleys, and later when Ron and Harry flew it to Hogwarts, the car became public knowledge. The consequences were severe. Arthur faced a ministry inquiry at work. He could have lost his job entirely. The Daily Prophet ran stories about it, and the incident gave ammunition to Arthur's critics who already questioned his judgment. Lucius Malfoy certainly didn't let him forget it. But here's the thing. Despite the professional embarrassment and the risk to his career, Arthur never stopped being fascinated by Muggles. If anything, the incident proved how much he respected Muggle engineering, that he wanted to improve upon it. Arthur's position put him directly in opposition to the rising Death Eater movement. Lord Voldemort's ideology centered on pure-blood supremacy and Muggle oppression. Death Eaters like Lucius Malfoy worked to undermine Muggle protection laws and push anti-Muggle legislation. In Chamber of Secrets, Lucius uses the chaos at Flourish and Blots to slip Tom Riddle's diary into Ginny Weasley's cauldron. This diary, a Horcrux, was designed to reopen the Chamber of Secrets and purge Hogwarts of Muggleborns. The target wasn't random. Lucius was striking at a family that represented everything he despised. Arthur's family became targets because of their beliefs. During the Second Wizarding War, the Weasleys were marked as blood traitors. Every member who could fight joined the Order of the Phoenix. They risked everything because Arthur and Molly raised their children to believe that blood status doesn't determine worth. In Order of the Phoenix, Arthur faces a near-death experience that shows just how dangerous his position had become. While guarding the Department of Mysteries, Arthur is attacked by Voldemort's snake, Nagini. The attack is brutal. The snake nearly kills him. Harry witnesses this attack through his connection to Voldemort, and the Weasley family rushes to St. Mungo's Hospital. Arthur's injuries are severe and unusual because they're inflicted by a magical creature's venom. The wounds refuse to heal properly, requiring ongoing treatment with experimental potions and dittany. This attack wasn't random either. Arthur worked at the Ministry. He was Order of the Phoenix member, and he represented everything Voldemort's regime opposed. The attack on Arthur was meant to send a message to all blood traitors: your progressive beliefs will cost you. But even after nearly dying, even after months of painful recovery, Arthur didn't change his stance. He continued his work, continued supporting Muggle rights, and continued being exactly who he'd always been. Let's lighten things up and talk about Arthur's shed. At the Burrow, Arthur has a workshop where he tinkers with Muggle objects. The family isn't always thrilled about this hobby. Molly, in particular, worries about his experiments. We know Arthur has collected electrical plugs, lots of them. He has batteries, which he finds absolutely fascinating, because they store power without magic. He's taken apart toasters, studied telephones, and examined countless other Muggle devices. In Goblet of Fire, the Weasleys use flue powder to travel to the Dursleys' house to pick up Harry, but the Dursleys' fireplace is blocked up, causing a magical explosion. When Arthur and his family emerge, Arthur is thrilled to see the Dursleys' living room, complete with television, electric fire, and modern furniture. He's practically bouncing with excitement despite the chaos. And remember his questions to Harry? He wants to know the exact function of a rubber duck. Harry has to explain that it's a toy. It doesn't really do anything. And Arthur is just fascinated that Muggles would create something purely for entertainment without any magical enhancement. One of the most important aspects of Arthur's character is how he raised his children. Every single Weasley child grew up respecting Muggles and Muggleborns, and that wasn't by accident, it was by design. Bill works for Gringotts and later marries Fleur Delacour. He shows no prejudice. Charlie works with dragons in Romania and judges people by their character. Percy, despite his other flaws, never shows blood prejudice. Fred and George create a joke shop that serves all customers equally. Ron becomes Harry's best friend and marries Hermione Granger, a Muggle-born witch. And Ginny stands up to bullies who use blood status as an insult. This didn't happen by accident. Arthur and Molly deliberately raised their children with values that went against pureblood society. They taught them that magical ability matters, not magical ancestry. They showed them that Muggles are clever, resourceful, and worthy of respect. In Deathly Hallows, when Voldemort takes over the Ministry and establishes the Muggle-born Registration Commission, the Weasley family actively works against it. They're part of Potterwatch, the Resistance radio program. They hide Muggleborns at the Burrow. They fight in the Battle of Hogwarts. Arthur's teachings created a generation of fighters for equality. Let's talk about Arthur's career trajectory, or rather, the lack of one. By the time we meet Arthur in Chamber of Secrets, he's been at the Ministry for years, possibly decades, and yet he's still in a lowly position in an underfunded, understaffed office. Compare this to Lucius Malfoy, who has the minister's ear and influences major policy decisions, despite not even officially working at the ministry. Or Barty Crouch Sr., who headed major departments and was once a candidate for Minister of Magic. These are Arthur's contemporaries in age and blood status, but their careers took very different paths. Arthur's salary is clearly insufficient for his family size. We know the Weasleys struggle financially. In Chamber of Secrets, they win a daily profit draw of 700 galleons and use it all on a trip to Egypt to visit Bill. Most of it goes on the trip itself. This is a family that never gets vacations otherwise. In Prisoner of Azkaban, Molly and Arthur have a whispered argument about whether they can afford new dress robes for Ron. They ultimately buy him second-hand robes, which embarrasses Ron terribly. Arthur could have pursued promotions in more prestigious departments, but he chose to stay where his heart was. One of the most beautiful aspects of Arthur's character is his relationship with Harry Potter. From the moment Harry enters the Weasley family's life, Arthur treats him with kindness, curiosity, and respect. In Chamber of Secrets, Arthur asks Harry about Muggle life with genuine interest, never making Harry feel like an oddity. In Goblet of Fire, when Harry's name comes out of the goblet, Arthur believes in Harry's innocence, without question. He provides steady, fatherly support throughout that dangerous year. For Harry, who grew up with the Dursleys' hostility toward anything magical, Arthur represents something revolutionary, a wizard who appreciates both worlds. Arthur never treats Harry's Muggle upbringing as a disadvantage. Instead, he sees it as a source of knowledge and experience. In Order of the Phoenix, after Arthur is attacked, Harry feels tremendous guilt because he witnessed it through Voldemort's connection. But Arthur never blames Harry. Instead, Arthur thanks Harry for raising the alarm that saved his life. This is typical Arthur, focusing on gratitude rather than blame. Finally, in Half-Blood Prince, Arthur gets a promotion. After Cornelius Fudge is forced out as Minister of Magic and Rufus Scrimgeour takes over, the ministry undergoes restructuring. Arthur is promoted to head the Office for the Detection and Confiscation of Counterfeit Defensive Spells and Protective Objects. This is a newly created position, and it's actually important. With Voldemort's return confirmed and Death Eaters active, people are desperate for protection. Unscrupulous sellers are peddling fake protective items to frightened witches and wizards. Arthur's new job is to stop them and ensure people have real protection. The promotion comes with better pay and more staff. Finally, the Weasley family has some financial breathing room. But here's the thing. Arthur only got this promotion when the ministry finally had to admit that his values were right all along. Voldemort's return proved that blood prejudice leads to darkness, and that protection of all magical people, regardless of blood status, must be a priority. Arthur spent years being mocked, underpaid, and dismissed as an eccentric. But when the crisis came, the ministry turned to someone with his integrity and values. The promotion vindicated everything Arthur stood for, even if it came decades too late. The ultimate test of Arthur's beliefs came during the Battle of Hogwarts. In Deathly Hallows, the Weasley family fights as a unit. Arthur, Molly, Bill, Charlie, Percy, George, and Ginny all join the defense of Hogwarts. The cost is devastating. Fred Weasley dies in an explosion, and the family is shattered. Arthur loses a son he raised with love and progressive values, a son who died fighting against blood supremacy and tyranny. But even in grief, Arthur continues fighting. The battle isn't about revenge, it's about the world Arthur always believed in. A world where blood status doesn't determine destiny. Where Muggleborns can attend Hogwarts safely. Where families like his aren't hunted for being blood traitors. When Voldemort finally falls and the war ends, Arthur's vision for the wizarding world begins to take shape. The epilogue in Deathly Hallows, set 19 years later, shows us a different world. Harry and Ginny are married, with children going to Hogwarts. Ron and Hermione, a pureblood and Muggleborn, are married with children. The next generation grows up in a world where blood status matters less. Arthur didn't live to see complete equality. Social change takes time, but he lived to see his children and grandchildren in a world where being a blood traitor is no longer dangerous, where his beliefs are becoming the norm rather than the exception. So what was the price of Arthur Weasley's Muggle obsession? Let's count it up. He spent decades in a dead-end job that paid poorly and earned him mockery from pureblood society. His family lived in modest circumstances when they could have pursued wealth. His children faced bullying and discrimination for being blood traitors. He nearly died from Nagini's attack. And ultimately, he lost a son in the war against blood supremacy. But what did Arthur gain? He gained a life lived authentically, true to his values and passions. He gained a loving family who shared his beliefs and fought for them. He gained the respect of people like Albus Dumbledore and the Order of the Phoenix. He helped raise a generation who would change the wizarding world for the better. Arthur Weasley's fascination with Muggles wasn't rebellion for rebellion's sake. It wasn't just eccentricity or a quirky hobby. It was a fundamental expression of his belief that magical ability doesn't make someone superior, that Muggles accomplish remarkable things without magic, and that the pureblood obsession with blood status is foolish and harmful. In a world where Voldemort nearly won, where Death Eaters tortured and killed Muggles and Muggleborns, where blood prejudice almost destroyed everything, Arthur Weasley stood firm. He stood firm when it cost him professionally. He stood firm when it cost him financially. He stood firm when it cost him his safety. And he stood firm even when it cost him his son. Arthur Weasley is proof that one person's convictions can make a difference. He wasn't a famous warrior or a powerful politician. He was a ministry employee who loved his family and respected Muggles. But he raised children who fought for what's right. He influenced colleagues and friends. He helped protect Muggle artifacts and Muggle lives through his work. And he never, ever compromised his values for comfort or status. So, the next time you see someone mocked for being different, for caring about things others dismiss as unimportant, for standing up for unpopular beliefs, remember Arthur Weasley. Remember that the price of integrity is often high, but the cost of compromise is higher. Remember that genuine curiosity and respect for others, even those different from us, is never foolish, it's revolutionary. What do you think? Was Arthur's Muggle obsession worth the price he paid? What's your favorite Arthur Weasley moment? Mine is definitely when he tries to use matches at the Quidditch World Cup. Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Arthur Weasley's character, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe for more character analysis and Wizarding World deep dives. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when we post. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep standing up for what you believe in, just like Arthur Weasley. See you in the next video.